When Bobby always reminds me all the time that Zay was my Sanda and carried me all the time.
And that's why you are. Finish the sentence.
And that's why I argued. That's what she said. She was also Avi Sanda, by the way.
He was really
So he's on it. So you see it runs right through. It went through his hands. You know, the argumentative. That's a word. But when Zaidy, on Sukkot, on Chol when I came from Muncie back down to the house, after Chanil called me, I think. Chanil called me right after Yom Tov, and we drove back to the house. I went straight into Bobby's apartment, and she said to me that you know, Zaidy might not be able to carry me much longer, and I'm going to need to be able to carry myself. And that was a very crushing thing to hear, you know, because Zay was a powerhouse, you know, and I definitely would not be able to carry myself the way he carried me. I could very much try, but there's a lot of members of our family that are role models in a similar way to me, in the way that Zay was, and I want to call Uncle Stevie to speak first, because that'd be very, very important.
Knock him around a little bit.
I had a little fun. I like what Zaidy was mad. Yeah. I had a different relationship with Zaidy. I mean, probably without him, I wouldn't be where I am in my life today. So, I told the story at the Levaya in Israel, and it probably best expresses, you know, our relationship together. Now, when I first met Auntie Donna was in September of 1977, and I knew I was going to marry her. There was no doubt in my mind the first day I met her. But I knew there were a couple of hurdles that needed to be overcome in life, you know. So, I had gone to visit her. She'd been ill a couple of weeks after we had met, and I was at the house, and there was this gentleman. I don't know who he was. You know, he was in the backyard. He was knocking these 2x4s together, and I thought that was real sporting. You know, they were going to put an extension on the back of the house. You know, didn't realize that October was, you know, Sukkot. You know, I had no idea about this, you know, and all these little things. And then as time traveled on, I realized, you know, she doesn't answer her phone on Friday night, and I can't get a hold of her. And so that's why I started to learn about Shabbos and, you know, Yom Tov and one thing and another and so on. But really the first time I got to sit down with Bobby and Zaidy was probably around March or April of '78. And at the time I was going through a lot of stuff. My parents were sick and lots going on in my life. But I was summoned to the house on Grassmere Terrace. And, you know, I got there on time. I did. That was one of my first things where I learned about Jewish time. You know, if they say 7, it means really 9. You know, there's no doubt about that. And, you know, Zaidy and Bobby came in, and Zaidy sat down on his chair and lit up a pipe. And those of you who remember, he did have that pipe, right? He sat in his chair, and that was by the piano, and Bobby sat over by the credenza. And Zaidy says to me, "So, what's your intentions with my daughter?" I said, "I'm going to marry her." "No doubt about it, I'm going to marry her." And Zaidy says, "Don't you see a little problem here with religion?" And I said, "No, not really. Not at all. Bonnie can do what she wants to do, and you know, I'll just kind of like tag along and, you know, whatever goes on, stuff like that." That was a terribly wrong answer. Let me tell you. Wrong answer. All right? So, further on, we talked about it, and he said, well, this is where we come from, and I said, well, I have no basis of comparison for this, wasn't very good at what I was at the time, but okay. And he says, would you consider converting? And I said, okay, yeah, whatever, but, I didn't know what was happening, at this point. So, roughly about 2 months later, the decision was really made easy for me because my parents were NIFTR at that time, and I really didn't have any ties to anything after that. And Zaidy says to me, Donna actually said to me, Zaidy wants you to come for Shavuos. Shavuos. There's Rosh Hashanah, there's Yom Kippur, and Passover. And that thing they built in the shack. What's this one coming up? Okay, so, we're going to sit and learn Torah. Okay, we're going to sit and learn Torah. Going on here and stuff. But I'm not doing this alone because really, I figure Zaidy wants to get rid of me. So he's going to have, his friends with him. So I'm going to have somebody with me. Right? So I call my friend Peter. Right? Peter and I are good friends. Right? Peter is Jewish. And he's a Kohen. I'm golden. Right? Peter, listen, you want to come up and stay up and learn Torah with me on Shavuos? On what? Shavuos. What's that? You're Jewish, man. Right? Okay. So Peter comes with me, and we stayed up at Saul Hoffitz's house. He was right across the street from the Young Israel of Waycrest and Bayswater, and Morty Botwinick was there, Oliver Shalom, and Leo Gross was there, Oliver Shalom, and Zaidy, and Peter came along with me. Right? And I really, honestly, I got to tell you the truth, I didn't understand what they were saying. I really just didn't have a clue. Right? But I'm willing to give it a try. Right? And it comes 4 o'clock. That's where I met Kenny Shapiro for the first time. But that's a whole other story. Alright? So at 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, we get up and we go across the street to the Young Israel of Waycrest and Bayswater. Alright? And Zaidy hands me a siddur, and he says, read. Now, I don't speak Hebrew. It's Greek to me. Anyway, right? But it's a Birnbaum siddur. Right? It has English. He says, start here and just read. I'll let you know when we're finished. And sure enough, I started to read. And from that moment on, I was hooked. I was hooked. So really, it's Zaidy who started me down the road, down the path, with Bobby, right? And Donna, and Amy, and Rochelle, and I can't leave out Dina, right? And Pies Plus. I will never forget that day, right? And if you don't know, I got summoned also by Rochelle and Dina to meet them at Pies Plus one day on Central Avenue. I think that's where Susie Michigan is now, right? And, well, whatever. And I was also asked, what are your intentions with my sister? Right? And I said, well, I'm an American. Anyway, so that's really, my path with Zaidy and his, teaching me about Judaism from his perspective and, to love everybody Jewish. Doesn't matter. Love everybody Jewish. Right? Defend the Jewish people. Be part of Kol Yisrael. And that's what I learned from Zaidy. And that's what I've tried to do. So maybe at this point in my life, I can't sit and learn a block of Gemara, right? But I feel like I'm a part of everybody, and I will drop at a moment, whatever I'm doing, to go help a fellow Jew. And I think that's what I took away from my relationship with Zaidy, right? And he taught me all the beautiful things that it is to be Jewish, right? And I'll finish off on one note. A couple of years ago, Donna and I were honored by the One Israel Fund. And in the interview process for the video that they do, at the interview there, they interviewed Bobby and Zaidy for the dinner, right? So they're sitting and they said to Zaidy, tell me, how's your attachment to Eretz Yisrael? He said, well, you know, I come from a religious family and so on and so forth, and I went and fought with the Irgun in Israel. Wow, proud of you and stuff. What did you do with the Irgun? Right? Now, if anybody knows in this family, nobody. When you ask Zaidy, what did you do? I can't talk about it. There are still people alive. Something will happen. This is 1940. I think we're pretty safe now saying it. But anyway, so Zaidy said that he was part of a 5-man cell, and only one guy knew somebody else in another cell before they could get up the chain of command. I said, so what did you do with them? He says, we robbed banks. Well, you could hear the silence in my house. Robbed banks? Where did this come from? Bobby was like, robbed banks? Donna and I were like, excuse us? My neighbor's across the street. What? So if anybody wants to know, the truth is out now. Zaidy was a bank robber. All right? But he was a very particular bank robber. He liked to rob Barclays Bank. Why, you may ask, Barclays Bank? They were insured by Lords of London. And they got their money back. So he felt that by robbing them, nobody really got hurt.
But he didn't use the money for himself.
Did I say he used the money for himself? That's what he did. He robbed banks, they gave it to the Irgun, they did whatever they had to do, and then Lloyds of London would give Barclay back their money, and Zaidy could do it all over again. Alright? So, everybody should just keep Zaidy's memory alive, right? Understand that he was a hero, not only to all of us here, but for all of Israel, right? In all the things that he did, he fought in Israel in 47, 48. He fought here for Soviet Jewry and to protect Jews on the streets. And that's the way we should teach our children, is how important it is, right, to care for one another and to care for our fellow Jew. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Steve, for leading us off, and okay.
Not running away.
Baruch Hashem, our family's very, very good, and you know, there are a lot of role models that learn from Zaidy to help carry on Zaidy's name, but very, very lucky to have Micha here, who is the oldest grandson and grandchild, and got to know Zaidy for the longest out of all of us. And with that, I would really, really like Micha to say a few words.
Sure.
Otherwise, I
Can't hear me? Because I haven't said a word yet.
The video cam won't be able to hear you. You have to talk
I
loud.
can't hear Eliana.
Lost your voice.
He knows.
Somewhere down the line. I'm not a great speaker like everyone else, and I'm going to keep my stories, I guess, to the point, and to where the relevant points are. And there's no particular order of them. I guess maybe just, the first one's just going to be Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the first one that I remember at least. The one thing that you can say about Saba, Zaidy, he was Saba or Saba Rabba, was consistency. At least from my point of view as a grandson, it was consistency. It was you know that Saba was going to leave the house to go to shul when we were there for Yom Tov for Shabbos. The same time every day, he was going to be in the kitchen, davening, the same time every single day. And he was going to be in the same spot, whether he was at Yeshiva Parakwoy, which I don't know how he davened there. It was as a 6-year-old or maybe 7-year-old kid going to shul with him at 7 o'clock in the morning in the trailer when it was freezing cold. It was, I was freezing, I would keep my jacket still on, and he was there under with his tallis, with I think just a shirt on and maybe a suit jacket depending on the time of year. He wouldn't talk the entire time. He wouldn't barely, I would tell him I'd be leaving, I could just shake his head yes. And we'd be going out, and anytime I would go out, or if I was by myself, we would just go out. And the same thing in Israel and Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. Saba was in the same spot. I don't even know if they gave spots or not. I don't remember that far back. I remember the shul being packed to a degree, but not so packed that I'm sure there had to be the same spot. But Saba was always in the same seat every single year. The same thing with davening, even when he came for Shabbos. I don't know if he regularly davened in Israel, did he?
No, just when you came.
Just when we came. Same spot also. And it was one of those things that carried me, I think, through my life that I always remembered about Saba was consistency. Was you wake up at a certain time, you do a certain thing, and that's just how life goes. It's how you get from day to day to day to day to the next day. And it's one thing that I remember about Saba that I hold, that I try and pass on to my children. The next thing would be where the Saba davened. There's actually one memory that I have that actually is just coming to me now. When we were there for, I don't remember if I went with Abba, without Abba to shul, but we had gone. I remember you and I being there. I remember going to Tantanisi and on Boozer afterwards, but I think I went with Saba to the shul, and I had to have been Yantiv. Pesach time, and I remember being.
You got the baked goods from Nissi.
Right, so I went to shul with Saba, I think, first, and another of us had gone to the Young Israel, and I remember, I don't think I ever stayed in shul that long, period. I must have been, I don't remember how old I was, but Birkos Kohanim, I don't think we went on, did we go into your talis? Were we ever in shul that long?
Yes, at the end.
Yeah, right. But I remember when Uncle Harry was mentioning at the Levi that he used to go under his talus, I have a distinct memory of going under his talus and looking up and seeing his beard and shushing every couple of seconds. Because I remember just talking, I didn't know what was going on. I was like, could we go now, could we go now? It was hot. Oh my goodness, it was hot. Saba was like I tell Danielle, her and the kids the same thing, they're like nuclear facilities that just exude heat. Saba was the same way. Underneath that talus, it was so hot. But I have these like glimpses of memories of things as like I was trying for the last 2 weeks. It's why it was hard for me to put it down to try and remember so far back. There's one time, there's a story, I've told it to the kids also, I think Eitan and I have both spoken about it too. Auntie Shelley used to live around the block on Jarvis, and we were by Saba and Savta by ourselves. And we were either walking Yehuda home, or we were going to meet Yehuda to play by Auntie Shelley, so we couldn't get there was a dog in the way. A big red dog that was in the way. We lived by, I think it was a Jamaican guy's house. Like 2-3 doors down. We couldn't get there. Ethan and I couldn't get to the house. I remember at some point we were trying to get there. It was like a game. We'd run there, the dog would chase after us, we'd run back to Sabta's house, we'd try again a couple of minutes later. At some point, Yehuda met us at some point, and Eitan and Yehuda somehow got past the dog, but I was still on the other side, but the dog started chasing them. Because I guess he got upset because they got through, I don't know what. I remember throwing a rock at the dog, and then the dog turned around and started chasing me. And I finally just ran home, and I told Saba, I said, Saba, he's like, what are you doing home? I was like, he's supposed to be at Yehuda's house, and because he was learning, or maybe he was sleeping, I don't remember. And I told them there was a dog in the way, and it's one of those memories that you have that like stands out, that are just like, when you think of a big person, an Adam Gadol, that's what you think of. he walked outside because I was just, to me, it seemed like the time that I was bothering him, but I don't think that's what it was. I think that he was just upset with the dog, that he had the audacity to chase us down. And he stomped outside, the door slammed behind us. I couldn't keep up with him, and the dog starts chasing after us. It's like the dog sees us, rather, and he starts taking 2-3 steps towards us. Saba grabs him by the scruff of the neck and throws him to the side. And he walks me to Yehuda's house, and that was the end. That's like one of those moments I have it clear as day. I remember Saba picking it up by the scruff of the neck and just throwing it to the side. The dog gives a yelp and then just scampers off somewhere else. We never saw the dog again. I don't know if I'm not sure if he killed it. I have no idea. But we never saw the dog again. Saba really was. He was an Adam Gadol. He was bigger than life. I mean, all of you were older when you remember him, and you grew up with him. But to us children, I'm sure I can speak to all the cousins. He was an Adam Gadol. He was just a giant. I mean, his hands were big. Even when he got older, his hands were big. They were humongous. I mean, people were coming up to me after his levaya and telling me, I knew that you were related because of your hands, and I would look down at my hands and be like, that's a joke, because his hands, I remember one time when I was holding his hand, and his fingers were probably double as wide as my fingers were. His hand was probably about double as wide as my hand was, and I don't have a big hand, but that's pretty big. He was bigger than life. He was quiet, he was soft-spoken to an extent, I guess. Except when he was passionate about something. With the kids, he would speak to us. It was a gruff voice, but it was never, I don't think it was ever harsh. At least to us it wasn't. Maybe to other people it was, but to us that was Saba. That's who he was. That's how he spoke. And then you would get a big hug from him, and you would just disappear, and you all of a sudden find this wet face of lips, and you were just, the side of your face was just, and I remember as a kid always turning whatever side he kissed me on, turning that side away from him and wiping it off so I wouldn't insult him, but that was the sign of love, that was the kiss. I remember mentioning it to Rabbi Weinberg, and he said he remembered it also. I guess I must have called him too. All the stories that you hear, I'm giving you the tea time. All right, I guess that's cutting down to my time. There was other stories I wanted to go into also, but
Go for it.
okay, I'm all right. See, yes, no, two Shelleys are arguing it out. Some of the cousins may remember Sheppy. Some of the cousins may not remember Sheppy.
Sheppy?
Sheppy.
Oh, we remember Sheppy.
Happens when they call Sheppy.
I remember Sheppy.
I remember Sheppy as being a staple of Saba Sabta's house. I don't remember it otherwise. When he was gone, it was, get out of the place. Yeah. That was as you were walking up the stairs, that's what you would, get out of here, go inside. That's what you did. But it was always, even still, this talk would be in the house by the end of his life. Every time he would get excited, every time he would, anything, for whatever reason. And Saba would be upset and he'd get angry at it, but there was always, it was a kindness. It was more than a kindness. It was a pity almost in the dog. But he still treated the dog in a way that you wouldn't expect someone of stature. The way that a person that he was, the way that there was still a tenderness and a loving that he would move the dog to the side.